What's guaranteed to trigger racist Democrats more than seeing people wave the American flag? That's right, seeing white South Africans come to this country and waving American flags.
Hey guys. Welcome. Welcome to the United States of America.
Thank you, sir.
It is such an honor for us to receive you here today. This is the land of the free, and we know that all of you have faced... I'm Chris Landau. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm the Deputy Secretary of State of the United States. This is my friend Troy Edgar.
Yeah, I'm the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. And again, welcome. So great to have you guys here.
It makes me so happy to see you with our flag in your hands, and that flag symbolizes liberty for so many of us.
So what I'm showing you there, folks, is the first wave of 59 individuals, primarily families with children, arriving at Dulles International Airport in D.C. under the new refugee program established by an executive order that President Trump signed in February. So they're the first group of white South African Afrikaners refugees that have arrived.
The Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security and I just met with this first flight of South African refugees to arrive in our country pursuant to the President's executive order about certain egregious actions in South Africa. The President made it clear that Afrikaners in South Africa who were the victims of unjust racial discrimination would be welcome to come to the United States, and he's now delivering on that promise. The Deputy Secretary and I just spoke to some of the folks who arrived on this flight, and they tell quite harrowing stories of the violence that they faced in South Africa that was not redressed by the authorities, by the unjust application of the law. The United States, as we were proud to say, stands for equal justice under law, and the fair and impartial application of the law. And again, this is a group that has not experienced that and has, to the contrary, experienced violence and really fear for their lives in South Africa.
President Trump once again following through on his promise to extend a hand to one of the world's most persecuted yet ignored minority groups, white South African Afrikaners. And of course, the left are absolutely livid. And here are the receipts.
So the Trump administration, they're saying that essentially these white South Africans assimilate better, and they're also not as much of a security risk. That's really causing a lot of people to be appalled, frankly. And I also should tell people that this violence that they're talking about that are dealing with these Afrikaners, I've been hearing from people that say there is violence in South Africa, but it's affecting everybody of every single race, Katie.
I don't even know where to begin. Let's start off with the obvious lie that these white South Africans are being targeted by black politicians in power in South Africa for being white. It is absolutely a race issue, and they are victims of racism. They can't even tell the truth. They have to lie to the American public. But what else do we expect from the goons over at MSNBC? They are absolutely appalled by this. Let's not forget, these are the same people whining and crying because Obrego Garcia was sent out of this country. They only care about racism if the victims are brown or black. They are not fair and equal. Do not believe a damn word that comes out of the mouths of Democrats and leftists. They are liars and hypocrites, and they are disgusting in this hypocrisy. All right, folks, so of course they had to hammer President Trump on this, and President Trump, as always, doesn't shy away from the negative press with an agenda, and he answers them head on.
Who claim discrimination in their home country are heading to the United States, right, where your administration is going to welcome them as refugees. Now, this comes as you've halted virtually all refugee admissions for people fleeing famine and war from countries like Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess a G20 meeting there or something. But we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of. But it's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about. But it's a terrible thing that's taking place. And farmers are being killed. They happen to be white. But whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. But white farmers are being brutally killed, and their land is being confiscated in South Africa. And the newspapers and the media, television media, doesn't even talk about it. If it were the other way around, they'd talk about it. That would be the only story they'd talk about. And I don't care who they are. I don't care about their race, their color. I don't care about their height, their weight. I don't care about anything. I just know that what's happening is terrible. I have people that live in South Africa. They say it's a terrible situation taking place. So we've essentially extended citizenship to those people to escape from that violence and come here.
Now, it's obvious to you, it's obvious to me why they are so livid on the left. And what's crazy is they're not even hiding it. They are being very clear on why they have a problem with this move by President Trump and his administration.
Well, in my view, what makes it different is that they are white South Africans. The president, in my view, has not hidden his racism behind a bushel. In fact, in his policies, whether it's removing government workers or, in this case, admitting white South Africans while denying refugee status, asylum seekers from other countries, principally Central and South American and Black nations, to come into this country. And so I think that, this policy, while it's not surprising in this action, really speaks of the underlying message in this that disrespects and shows disdain for people of color while embracing these Afrikaners now, and also expediting the process by which they can come into the country while denying that same process to other refugees.
The problem, of course, is that they're white. All these people don't have criminal records, but they will fight and take flights to El Salvador and go to luxury resorts and scream and cry that we want these gangbangers back. But when actual farmers, people who actually provide food, they always talk about who's going to pick our crops. Well, how about the people who actually plant the crops and actually farm and do the labor? And why wouldn't we want these people in our country? The left always crying about the poor migrant farmers. How about the poor white farmers from Africa that work hard and provide food? Oh, but we can't, they don't count because they're white. And then they actually go on CNN and say stupid ass things like they should go back to Germany. I guess they don't know the basics about Afrikaners being of Dutch descent.
The people who are native to that land deserve their rightful land back. That is not what the Afrikaners actually want to have happen, which are the white Africans. And so who are not originally from Africa, who colonized South Africa also. And so that is what they are saying is discrimination. Now, if the Constitution in South Africa is discriminatory, they have their checks and balances in that land, just like we do. And that is for them to, so if the Afrikaners don't actually like the land, they can leave that country.
They are. They're leaving to come here.
No. They can
These refugees are coming here.
They can actually leave and go to where their native land is, which is probably Germany.
Are you against them coming here?
Holland, probably. Holland,
Are you against them coming here?
Look, folks, I don't generally bring race into this, but we are talking about race, and I am black, I am conservative, and I am a patriot. But folks, when they put stupid-ass people like this, it makes us black folk look bad. But it also shows you the true color of the Democrats. They will put a black face on television. Often they like to put a female black face to give their ridiculous talking points. And they don't even put smart people up there. Because they think that black people are stupid and just going to listen to someone else because they have the same color as them, and that the white liberals, because of white guilt, are just going to fall in line with whatever their blackface puppet says. And they call the Republicans the racist party that uses puppets. Absolutely ridiculous. I would say that they're sinvergüenza, that they're shameless. Sinvergüenza, which means shameless in Spanish, has a lot more weight than it does in English. I understand this. But to have shame, you have to have some sort of morals. You have to have some sort of conscience. But all these people do is they hate America and they hate anybody that wants to be part of the American dream, add to our society, and not just suck and take away from it. So, welcome, Afrikaners. Welcome to our country. I hope someone showed this to you to let you know that you are in a new land and you have black brothers and sisters that have your back. Welcome to this land. Okay, folks, I want to go back to what happened earlier on Monday. I covered this on my Monday reports earlier in the day. But I want you to listen to what RFK Jr. said when President Trump signed this executive order to bring down the prices of pharmaceuticals and take on Big Pharma. RFK Jr. peels back the onion. And we know that there are lobbyists. We know that their money and their pressure and what they can do in D.C. as lobbyists really has more influence than we do as the constituents who vote for these people. But I don't know if I realized that we were, in a way, outnumbered in this fashion. Let's go to RFK Jr. and let me play this for you so you can see what I'm talking about.
And I'd like to ask Robert F. Kennedy to say a few words, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator on Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3.
1, 2, or up to 3 lobbyists for every single person of power and influence and representative of we the people in D.C. That means that there's 300 lobbyists alone for our 100 senators who are in their ears overriding anything else that you and I may be saying. And then, of course, what's that? 1,200 plus? That would be like 1,300 for the House of Representatives. And I didn't realize that there's 1, 2, or 3 even for every Supreme Court justice as well. Wow. And it's not just them being in their ears. It's also bringing the cheddar, the change, the ducats, the money.
Pharmaceutical companies, the industry itself spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything because it was radioactive. They knew you couldn't get it by Congress.
You couldn't get it by Congress because they were bought and sold by Big Pharma. But not President Trump. Not President Trump. And you heard Bobby Kennedy Jr. talk about this. This was the big, one of the big pillars of policy on which Bernie Sanders stood on, knowing damn well that nothing was ever going to get done. It was just going to be like every other Democrat before him, a talking point that they were never actually going to bring to pass and actually have happen. But we have a person who is not beholden and that is our duly elected and beloved President Donald John Trump. And he is doing what Democrats before have said they would do, but didn't do. And listen to what RFK Jr. says here. It's pretty moving. That even members of his family who do not like President Trump, who are not fans of President Trump, who are Bernie bros and sisters, actually being emotional about what just happened today. Or Monday, May 12th. Because this episode will be available Monday late for those of you who are members of the BCP fan club. And this will be available for everyone else on Tuesday morning. If you want to join, hit that join button down below. You'll get early access to many of my reports.
We now have a president who is a man of his word, who has the courage. President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry, too. I think they gave you $100 million. But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on this side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump. And I'm very, very proud of you, Mr. President, for your courage, I'll say, because I don't want to be crude, your intestinal fortitude, your stiff spine, and your willingness to stand up for the American people.
He didn't want to be crude. I think we all know that he wanted to say that President Trump is the only one that has the balls, the cojones, the brass pair to take on the oligarchs. I'm not a crass person, but I thought I'd fill in the blanks for RFK Jr., as if you didn't figure it out yourself.
So I'm just so grateful to be here today. I never thought that this would happen in my lifetime. I have a couple of kids who are Democrats, are big Bernie Sanders fans. And when I told them that this was going to happen, they had tears in their eyes because they thought this is never going to happen in our lifetime. And we finally have a president who's willing to stand up for the American people.
One person we know that doesn't like President Trump, no matter what, and now this is the third time that he has veiled comments that are anti-Trump. I'm talking about Chief Justice John Roberts of the Supreme Court. Monday, he took another veiled shot during remarks at Georgetown Law. Now, he didn't call Trump out by name, but he decried ad hominem attacks against judges. So here's the quote. The court has obviously made mistakes throughout its history, and those should be criticized, so as long as it is in terms of the decision, really, and not ad hominem against the justices. I think that doesn't do any good, is what he said, according to Politico. In their article on Monday, rule of law is endangered, Chief Justice says, as he criticizes ad hominem attacks of justices. Well, when justices themselves are not upholding the law, interpreting the Constitution, making law, and overstepping their boundaries, you get to go after and comment and, as Justice Roberts would call it, make ad hominem attacks against them personally, because it is them personally doing it. They are straying away from the path of their authority and their duty and jobs as judges when they are part of a judicial coup and they are not acting on behalf of the people, of their oath to uphold the Constitution, and are just being operatives for the Marxists with their TDS written all over their faces and in their decisions. But folks, it's not all bad news when it comes to the courts. Let's end this report on a positive note. Huge win for President Trump as a federal judge gives green light for IRS to share illegal immigrants' tax data with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. A federal judge in Washington, D.C. has denied a motion by far-left immigrant advocacy groups seeking to block the Internal Revenue Service from sharing taxpayer information with ICE for the purpose of locating and removing illegal immigrants. Judge Dabney Frederick, appointed by President Trump, ruled on Monday that the IRS is legally authorized under the federal statute to provide taxpayer address information to ICE if it is connected to criminal immigration investigations. The case Centro de Trabajadores Unidos et al. Versus Scott Besson et al. Was filed by several immigrant activist organizations, including Immigrant Solidarity DuPage and Somos Un Pueblo Unido, who argued that the IRS's data sharing plan with the Department of Homeland Security was illegal, arbitrary, and violated immigrants' trust. Oh, we're not supposed to violate the trust of people who aren't in this country legally or are here by our permission, visa and residents with green cards who aren't yet citizens. They care about everyone's rights except yours and mine as natural born, or in the case of my wife from Mexico, naturalized citizens. They want us to be second-class citizens in our own country. This is absolutely ridiculous. But Judge Frederick was unswayed, pointing directly to a section of the IRS code which explicitly allows federal agencies to request and receive tax return information such as names and addresses for criminal investigations. The judge emphasized that the IRS is required by law to comply with such requests if proper procedures are followed. The ruling followed revelations that the IRS and DHS has signed a memo of understanding last month, enabling ICE to formally request the addresses of individuals under criminal investigation, a move that could help locate and deport hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens. Here's the filing, and yet another win to start off this week. I don't know where this week's going to go, folks, but we'll take every single win we can, won't we? All right, folks, do me a favor. Make sure that if you haven't done already, that you smash that like button and hit the notification bell. I'm not sure if I will be doing more live streams. It seems that as of late, this platform does not want to let you know when I'm having a live stream, whether I do a live stream with a 30-minute, an hour, or a 90-minute lead time. The notifications, for some odd reason, aren't going out. So I may or may not have another live stream today. I might just have these pre-recorded uploads. But either way, make sure you hit the notification bell. If you want to support my work, I don't have sponsors on this show, then you can hit the join button down below, which will also give you early access to videos. You can also check out my other show, BCP Unfiltered, the BCP podcast, by going to bcpextras.com and therealbcp.com. The next episode will be dropping on Tuesday, May 13th. If you want to check it out, go over to bcpextras.com and therealbcp.com. I will be back. Much love.